adopt the regulations by reference and started out essentially, have the regulation in place by 1989. So our program was very successful at a very early stage, and it became a model for many states and county agencies to follow. So over the last 3 decades or so, we have several bouts of wood stoves change out, and with the regulations in place, the air quality was gradually improving. So now, fast forward to the latest round of NSPS. EPA is supposed to update the NSPS every 8 years, but as you can see, they haven't done anything between 1988 and 2015. So it took them a while, probably due to all these other programs, and this one just kind of got left behind until new technologies were in place to do so. So by 2016, Washoe County Health District Air Quality, we adopted EPA's NSPS so that we are in compliance with the federal standards. So you can find out the entirety of this wood burning device regulation 040.051 in our air quality website, allcleanair.com. So the purpose of EPA's NSPS for the wood heaters, they call it wood heaters because fireplace is not considered one of them, just wood stoves, pellet stoves, inserts, and so on. So they call it wood heaters, and the purpose is to have a new emission standards based on improved wood heater technology, and also to tighten emission limits for stoves and establish first ever emission limits for pellet stoves, forced air furnaces, and hydronic heaters. The last two we don't have in our area because we just don't have that much trees that we can chop down to burn, because they take a lot of firewood to use those two devices. And at that time, they also require manufacturers to make cleaner wood burning devices starting on 2015, which is step 1, and then produce even cleaner models by 2020, step 2. The reason why this is a 2-step process is because EPA did not want the manufacturers to feel burdened that they can't meet the final standards in just 1 step. So they broke it out into 2 steps to ease the manufacturers into this transition period, to help them catch up to speed with manufacturing cleaner stoves. And another requirement is to have permanent labels affixed on each devices that they manufacture to certify that these devices meet EPA standards. So here's a comparison between the original 1988 standard and the current step 1 and step 2 standards. The 1988 standard limits particulate matter emissions to 7.5 grams per hour for wood stoves and inserts only. And the step 1 standard in 2015 tightened the emission limits to 4.5 grams per hour, but this time it also includes the pellet stove. But obviously it doesn't apply to existing wood burning devices unless you sell your house. Then if there's a device, then it needs to be checked to make sure that it still comply with the current standard. And stove dealers cannot sell uncertified devices after December 2015. Step 2, which will be in effect tomorrow, further tighten the emission limits to 2.5 grams per hour for wood stoves, inserts, and pellet stoves. Same way, it does not apply to existing wood burning devices if no change stoves property changing hands. And stove dealers cannot sell step 1 devices after excuse me, after today, really. But keep in mind that there are 2 things that you need to remember. One is the date, manufacturer date, and the other is the emission limit. So let's say if there's a stove that was manufactured in 2015, but it has an emission limit of 2.5 grams per hour or less, from this point forward, they are still in compliance with EPA standards, so they can stay. So just to make that clear. So the benefits of wood heater NSPS are twofold. First of all, it's emission reductions. So nationwide, by complying with the certified devices, we can see emission reductions of carbon monoxide, VOC, volatile organic compounds, and PM 2.5, particulate matter less than 2.5 microns in diameter, by 60 to 70%. And these three are the main pollutants from burning wood in your stoves. The second fold is from these emission reductions, the cost savings from health improvement benefits. For every dollar spent to comply with the certified stoves, you save $74 to $165 by avoiding asthma attacks, non-fatal heart attacks, emergency room visits, lost work days, premature deaths, and so on. And these are just the major health concerns from using wood burning devices. So to know why we are so concerned about wood burning devices and emissions in our area, we have to look at our topography and air quality in Washoe County, more specifically in Truckee Meadows. Here's the blue line depicting the outline of the Truckee Meadows. As you know, we are flanked by mountain ranges on the east and west, and the cities of Reno and Sparks predominantly in the valley. Until now, they're branching out, and then population for the whole county is approaching 500,000. So with all these components in play, we have wintertime inversion. When we have a cold night, people start using their stoves and there's no wind. The smoke has no place to go. It just lingers in the valley and creating inversion layers and deteriorating air quality. So based on that, we know that smoke from residential wood burning, wood combustion is the leading cause of wintertime air pollution. As I mentioned earlier, the main pollutants include PM 2.5, CO, and VOC. On a typical winter day, residential wood combustion emit 40% PM 2.5 and CO each, and 80% VOC of all emissions in the Truckee Meadows. When I say all emissions, I mean tailpipe emissions, emissions from manufacturing processes and industrial operations. So everything that has a potential to emit anything, we are counted. So wood smoke is the main concern in the wintertime. So here's a comparison of a PM 2.5 particle so that you can get a sense of how small it is and why it is so detrimental to our health if we breathe in too much of it. So here's a grain of sand, about 90 microns. Compare that to your hair, anywhere from 50 to 70 microns. You can fit 5 to 7 PM10 particles into your hair. PM10 is particulate matter less than 10 microns in diameter. It's similar to PM 2.5, but 4 times larger. And they consist of dust, pollen, mold, and road sand when we drive our cars over and got re-entrained and so on. So PM 2.5 is 4 times smaller than PM10. It's so small that you can't see them with the naked eyes. And they are the primary product of combustions, organic compounds, and some metals, etc. So these are so small, you can see them when you breathe in. These particles, they go really deep into your lungs, causing all sorts of health concerns that I mentioned earlier. So to protect public health, we have a program called Keep It Clean, Know the Code in place. This program is a daily notification between November 1st and the end of February. It's basically a color-coded notification. When it is green, burning is allowed, but only use dry, seasoned wood. Dry wood is anything that's less than 20% moisture content. Let's say if you go out and chop your own wood and split it and put it on the rack and dry it, it will take anywhere from 6 months to a year to get down to that 20% moisture. So if you burn green wood, it's very inefficient, creates a lot more hazardous pollutants and lots of smoke, and very inefficient and bad for your health. if you get a yellow burn code, we suggest that you stop burning or reduce burning. By reducing or stopping burning sooner, air qualities will not reach the unhealthy levels. When it reaches unhealthy level, a red burn code will be issued. That means that burning is prohibited. You could be cited if you're still burning. Let's say you were unaware and you started a fire in the morning and your neighbors saw that your chimney is smoking. They will call in a complaint to air quality and will send an inspector out to check on you. They will ask you to please put out your fire and come back and check in a couple hours because the smoke takes a little while to dissipate. But in a couple hours, if they come back and your chimney is still smoking, then they will give you a citation. So this is how we can do to prevent air quality from deteriorating. But luckily, in the last couple of years, we haven't had to call any red code. So primarily due to a lot of cleaner stoves being put in place, and the words are more widely shared by media, and social media places. Like most of the meteorologists on TV will put it on their announcement when they give you the 5 o'clock weather update in the evening. So by doing this Keep It Clean Know the Code program, the message is updated every day by 3 p.m. We send the message out via social media, Facebook, Twitter, and post it on our website, ourcleanair.com. And we also have an email notification system that you can sign up for via EnviroFlash. It looks like this. And it will send you an email every day after 3 o'clock. Or the most common denominator is the hotline 785-4110 for those who are technologically challenged. So because of all the regulations in place and the several rounds of wood stove changeouts, the air quality has been steadily improving since the late 80s, despite almost doubling of the population. So this attributes to community outreach, collaboration, partnership, and sharing of information such as yourself, to your clients, your families, and friends. So the collaborative effort is what we are shooting for, to make sure that everybody gets the message so that we can protect our air quality as pristine as possible, which in turn will attract more people visiting our area or wanting to buy a house in our area. So here's the remaining of the wood stove exchange programs that we still have. None in Washoe County, in the Truckee Meadows down here in Reno Sparks. But if you have any clients up in Incline Village, there are 4 rebates remaining. They're $400 each for EPA certified device, wood stove, pellet stove, or a gas fireplace. But the old stove has to be older than 1992 to qualify. So if you know of anyone, any clients interested, make sure to get them in touch with Chris Lynch with Business Environmental Program. And if this is done before you close escrow, it will be much easier. So it's much less hassle for you to go back and do it, for the clients to do it later on. Because sometimes clients say, "Oh, I wish I knew that there was a wood stove that I could have changed out and utilized this rebate program," so they can skip a couple steps and get it done properly before the close escrow. And Chris Lynch can help them achieve that. So please share that with your client. So now Jessica's gonna enlighten you with all the stuff that you can do to help you have a smooth escrow closing and transaction to get you where you need it. Jessica?
Good morning, everyone. So title company responsibilities. So we added this slide in here. So your mission as an escrow agent, should you choose to accept it, to ensure complete, timely, and accurate form submittals. So we went ahead and we did a flow chart to kind of help guide on which path you need to take when you're dealing when there's a wood burning device or not on the property. So we have on one side on the certificate of compliance, and then we have the notice of exemption on the other. So we recommend just choosing one path depending on what's actually in the home. So the first part I'm going to go through is going to be the certificate of compliance section, and when it is compliant and when it's not, and the steps that are involved. And then later in the presentation, I will actually go down the NOE path on those devices, or no devices on the properties. So when there is a wood burning device on the property, it does need to be inspected to determine if it is compliant or not. Uncertified devices during those inspections, if they're found to, like I said, not compliant, they need to be permanently removed or replaced with certified ones. And I know Yan talked about the wood stove exchange program. So unfortunately, we don't have any more in Washoe County, but we still have those 4 left in Incline Village. So if you guys know of any realtor that's out there with this kind of situation, kind of, direct them to Chris Lynch. One of the things I do want to make a reminder on here is that per the regulations, certificate of compliances do get issued within 14 calendar days of the time of the inspection form being received in our office. So that is part of the regulations. So I do have that little bit of a window period in there to get these out to you guys so you guys can close. Escrow cannot close until certificate of compliance has been issued. And the reason I put that in there is because I cannot give verbal okays. I cannot send just a blank email just saying it's okay for you to close. I have been told that that's not an appropriate practice for me to do, and that you guys need to wait until I'm able to issue that certificate of compliance. That's why I have the 14 calendar days in there. So I want to go ahead and give you a view of what the wood burning device inspectors use as the inspection form. This is what gets filled out on the property. It has the real estate agent information, it has the escrow information and the title, and then they do, their inspections, and they make notes on this, and they signed that they went out there and did this. This is what gets turned into the office. This is what I get, and this is what gets put into the queue. So it is, very important on these inspection forms if we have the seller information, because I try to have everyone that's involved in the party to be notified, especially if it's failed, because there's extra steps involved, and they need to be notified of what's, the next things that they need to do. Because I've had situations where the seller has not been made aware, and then they get a little frustrated, and then I get all these, like, a lot of emails and phone calls in regards to it. So so this just kind of helps alleviate a little bit of that going back and forth, and make things move a little faster through our process. So I'm adding here the certificate of compliance, a sample of what it looks like. This is what you should guys be receiving from me in order for you to close escrow. So because I've been getting like emails asking me, hey, can I close with this? And it's actually been normally been invoices from those independent contractors, which is not a inspection form to begin with that needs to be turned in. Second, it's their bill, and it's not my certificate of compliance. So this is what it should look like, just to kind of give you a heads up that this is what you should be looking for. So again, if there's a wood burning device, go ahead and have those realtors do those inspection forms if they can sooner or later. I am doing presentations with the realtors, and I do stress that a lot with them to get these done, not at the last minute, because that will delay the closing of their sale of their home, or the home that they're presenting. But so I do stress that with them. So if you are aware that there's some sort of a warning device, encourage them to do that sooner than later. Again, the certificate of compliances, again, are issued within 14 calendar days of the time I received that inspection form. One of the things that it is part of the regulations that once these inspection forms are turned in, they are valid for 9 months or change of ownership, whichever comes first. So with that being said, if someone turns in a an inspection form and it's a pass and it's a compliant device, and they are not in escrow just of yet. It just sits in the queue, just waiting for it to be issued. So it just kind of prevents that rushing at the end to getting these done. The only drawback on that is that we have these certificate of compliance transfer forms. And what that means is that, like, if they are just sitting waiting for escrow, or it's already in escrow, but for whatever reason falls out, and they have to put the property back on the market, and it enters a whole new title company, new escrow, new buyers, new everything. So they fill out this form, or whoever wants to turn it in, fill out this form, submit it with payment, and I'm able to issue a new certificate with the new information in order for you to have appropriate documentation in order for you to close escrow. This is what the certificate of compliance transfer form looks like, and as you can see, there is a fee on the top, and it's because of our system that there's fees attached to us being able to reissue these certificates, and this is the only way for them, for the homeowners, not to have pay another inspector to go out there to do this inspection. And it's a lot faster for this to get expedited and sent to you guys. And it involves like all the original information, and then it has the new escrow and title company and whoever needs to get it at that time. And they do make sometimes notes on it if I need to know any additional information. If there is a failed inspection form, again, we're asking for those devices to be removed, and you do receive via email by me a denial of certification, which states on there that it has to be removed. And we're asking for device destruction receipt to be provided when they do the second required inspection by the wood burning device inspector. So when that wood burning device inspector goes out there, sometimes they will do their own removals, but sometimes they won't. The homeowner probably removed it, and the wood burning device inspector still has to go out there, do that inspection to verify that the device is nowhere on site, sitting in the backyard or in the garage, waiting to be put back into the home. And they ask for, and they will be asking for the device destruction receipt to be provided. The inspectors will then fill out what is called a verification removal form, and they will be submitting it with that destruction receipt to our office. Once I get that documentation, I do clear the certificate of compliance, and I do send it to you guys as escrow agents. The only exemption that there is available for uncertified stoves is that if there is a stove that's permanently placed into a fireplace, concreted in, sealed in, there's like no way to take it out to look what it is, because of the way that's been put into the home. And you know that if you do try to remove it, it will cause any damage to the property. The inspectors have been made aware as to what they need to submit as proof and how to notate it on those inspection forms, so then we can have an approval, and it is notated on those certificate of compliance as to why these certified stoves were just left in place and will not be able to be verified. And again, and that's another reason why we need that seller information on the form, because that's very important for them to know where in the process they are, especially on these failed inspections. This is what those wood stove inspectors submit to the office, the wood burning device removal form. And again, they fill it all out with information. They make their notes, and then they assign and attest that they're actually gone out there for that second inspection. And they actually are, saying that there's nowhere on site, it's been gone, it's destroyed, removed, and it's not in the home anymore. So here's a sample of a device destruction receipt. So they do provide them. So this way you guys are aware that there is, people that do these metal recyclings, and they do provide these receipts. So I went ahead and I added about 4 locations in town that I know that they do these recycling of these wood burning devices. The only thing I do suggest on these is that they all do things a little different. So some of them charge money, some of them will give money. Some of them have certain like days and hours that they would like the stoves to be dropped off. And then there's some of them that actually want to go pick it up. So it just kind of depends what the homeowner wants to do. And so it's a good suggestion just to let them figure out what works best for them. So that was actually the path for the certificate compliance. Now I'm actually going to go over the notice of exemption path. And again, we always want you to choose one path over the other, okay? Not both. So the notice of exemption is part of our regulations, as Yan said, and that would be the 040.051, part of the regulations. And notice of exemptions have to accompany the real estate transactions. They have to be submitted to our office within 14 calendar days after close of escrow or title change. It is required for both the buyer and the seller to sign these and to be notarized. Please have them, the buyer and the seller, do the signing. Do not sign for them. Do not tell anyone to sign for them. It causes issues. So just to be aware on that. And then on this form, the notice of exemptions basically kind of attest that there's no wood burning devices on the property. The only exemption would be a fireplace. And the reason for that is because the fireplace is part of a structure. So it has to be a whole, there's no devices, it's just brick and mortar fireplace. And because they can't ask you to take it out, otherwise the whole house might collapse. So that's not feasible. The other option that is on there is the uncertified wood stove or pellet stove removed prior to sale, and no other wood burning devices on the property. So this is an option for the homeowner that they have if they just want to remove it because they know it's old, it's not compliant, it's an they don't like the color of it, it's an eyesore, whatever the reason is, they just want it to be done. They don't want to deal with an inspector in their home. They just want to get it done and they want to remove it. So they have the option to select this, that there was a wood stove in the home and they removed it without having it inspected. So this is a notice of exemption form. So on here, I'm actually going to go through what it's the common things that are being missed across the board for all title companies. And one of the things is like the closing date, the property contains are being missed. Both the seller or the buyer signatures are being missed. And then we have the notary seals or signatures that are being missed on this form. So it's very important for us not to forget to have it all completely filled out on these because we don't want to keep sending them back to your offices to get them fixed. So one of the updates that we've done, how we're going to process notice of exemptions, we are asking for just one copy of the NOE to be submitted to our office as long as it is correctly completed. We do not need any additional copies to be submitted. I know in the past it said, send the original and then send a copy. We're just asking for one copy, even if it's a copy, but if it's long as it's completely filled out properly, we'll take it. Okay, that means all signatures, seals, closing dates, all that's in there. Okay, and then if you guys are using electronic notaries from this time forward, it's an acceptable practice for submitting the NOEs, just to kind of let you know that we're on that path. So when I send corrective action plans back, when there's things being missed on those notice of exemption forms, if there's a notice of exemption, and I'll talk about the both paths that I have on here. So if you have a notice of exemption that is missing the manufacturer, or it has marked manufacturer yes, fireplace, oh, no wood burning devices, but it's still missing like the property address, the APN, closing date, property contains escrow numbers, the seller buyer signatures, notary signatures and or seals, you will either get a call or an email either be by me or by someone in our office to trying to get these corrected as sooner or later. And the reason we're doing this is that all the notice of exemptions that are being sent into our office, we're going to go ahead and process them. And then we're going to take this corrective action side of things to get them corrected. The reason for that, we do not want to have being sent paperwork and checks being sent back and forth between our offices and your office, because I've seen that things tend to get lost, misplaced, forgotten, whatever the reason might be. And this we're trying to eliminate that going back and forth, especially with the money going back and forth on these, and actually have them in the system. If I have a notice of exemption that's submitted with the uncertified stove removed, and it is missing the closing date, the seller, buyer signatures, notary signatures, and/or seals, those are actually being handed over to our compliance enforcement staff. And so you might be getting a call or a office visit to have any of these issues be corrected at that time. The reason for that is that if you remember, on our notice of exemptions, they have to be submitted 14 calendar days after close of escrow. On that notice of exemption, it also states that you give, or the new buyer gives permission for our inspectors, our compliance staff inspectors, to actually go out into that property, step onto that property, to do the verification that the stove is nowhere on site. And they only have a very small window period. So if we're missing signatures, closing dates, or any of these notary signatures or seals, makes it a little complicated, because it's not completely filled out, and they need to have to make sure this form is, done properly before they start heading into this home. So we are asking that once I do either email them or called, that we need to have these notice of exemptions corrected within 15 calendar days from the date stamp on the corrective action form. If it's failure to be done so within that time frame, they will be turned over to our compliance staff, and which may result in enforcement actions. So we don't want to go down that path. So this is why we're trying to do this, via email, and have you guys kind of correct, some of these issues with a quick turnaround. The only time that I will not process the NOE at all is if it's being submitted with the wrong fee amount, or if it's being submitted with a stale dated check. Those will be turned as they're being sent into me. The whole paperwork, the check, everything will be sent back to the office. They will not get touched and processed in our office. So this right here, go ahead, Ian. So this is a sample of this corrective action form. We do notate on there what needs to be corrected. And as you can see on the bottom, we have the date returned for corrections. It shows the date that it gets stamped, and normally when it's being sent back for you guys to correct it at that time. And normally those emails are coming from me as of now. So this is an example of a notice of exemption that actually needed to be corrected. And on here, they did mark uncertified wood stove removed. It is missing the notary seal. So our compliance enforcement staff inspector had to go out there and had to do a visit to the title company to have that escrow officer, or whoever the notary was, to do their seal, to get it fixed. And then they did a visit to the home. And when they went to that home, the stove was on the property. Our inspectors do try to work with the new homeowners to get this resolved, because they did sign that they had an uncertified stove that was removed. So during this inspection, that stove, they worked with the homeowner, they finally got it removed, but it took a few visits and a few contacts with them to get this resolved. They do try, but if they see these homeowners are not compliant, they might be looking at being cited and fined and issued a fine at that time. So you can find our forms and applications on our website, ourcleanair.com. And I kind of added this bullet points where it kind of shows the path as to where to find it. And this is how they're listed on our website. So the first one you'll see the notice of exemption form, the certificate of compliant transfer form. We do have on there that verification of wood burning device removal form that those inspectors use, as well as their inspection form. We have the list of certified wood burning device inspectors. These inspectors do take a class once a year, and we go over the regulations, procedures, expectations, and they get a test as to for them to be on this list as to what is being inspected for them to be doing these compliance inspections for us. We have our sole source of heat declaration form. That is where you have a homeowner that has a wood stove that heats their home. They have nothing else. They will fill out this form. We do send a compliance inspector out there and to verify that there's no other source of heat. We keep them on the list. As of now, there's only like a handful of people in Washoe County that are like that. And this is actually helps when we have a red code and someone wants to call and complain that their neighbor is smoking, and we do the verification of the address, and if we see that they're on this list, we do not send the inspector because we can't tell these homeowners to turn off their only source of heat in their home. The next one is our dealer's affidavit of sale form. That one's for our wood stove dealers in town. And this, they have to fill out, they have to submit it into our office to tell us where they're selling the stoves to, if they're selling what's appropriate for that homeowner to have in their home installed, and per the regulations. And this also gives the homeowner the form to be able to get their building permit, so it can be inspected after it's being installed in their home, and it's part of their plans. You want to go ahead and make sure that they actually have this, because if they don't and they install it, what we're calling illegally, and their house catches on fire, insurance companies will not pay for damages because it's not been part of their building plans. So you want to make sure that they're permitted and they are being at least inspected to building code as well. All fees and forms will be updated by July 1st. I don't know what the new fees are as of yet, but as soon as I know, I do send a blast of the new forms and fees out to all title companies so you guys can update it in your systems. So just to kind of recap really quick here as to our program. So in 2010, AQMD issued 254 certificate of compliances. Yan, you got out of the presentation. We had at that time, 2010, 82 new stoves installed in homes. 46 were replaced. 41 wood stoves got removed. 5,767 notice of exemptions were processed in their office. So we fast tracked to 2019. I issued 442 certificate of compliances. 118 new stoves were installed, and then 83 were replaced. Wood stoves that got removed were 80, and then notice of exemption that got processed 8,353. So as you can tell, I do have a lot of paperwork that comes through my desk. So that's another reason why of the 14 calendar days to be there. It does not take me that long, but if something does happen, I need to be able to have that little window period in there for you guys. So just to kind of recap on here on our program, so wood burning device program has been successful since 1989. Steps 2 of our emission standard rates will take effect tomorrow. With that being said, I will actually be taking a look at everything that I have pending as inspections. If there is a pass inspection form that I have not issued a certificate, or that has not closed escrow by tomorrow, I will be sending those denials emails and letting you know that the homeowners and whoever's involved, that they probably need to take additional steps to have those removed at that time. You can find our forms again on our website, ourcleanair.com. Clarified, streamlined, and actually there are PDF fillable. And we are asking for documentation when it is submitted, so escrow cannot close without the certificate of compliance being issued. Notice of exceptions have to be submitted within calendar days of close of escrow to avoid penalties. And then those uncertified device destructions devices need to be submitted or be provided that receipt to those wood stove inspectors. Again, if you're in doubt, ask questions. I went ahead and I added my email address on the bottom here, but I also, we created another email. So that aqmd-wbd@washoecounty.us on the bottom. So if you email me, you attach the other email on there. It just kind of, it's a group that's in there. A few people that can't, if I'm not in the office, can't get back to you soon, whatever the reason might be, any of these people that are on this link will get the email notification, and they might be able to answer your questions earlier if, you know, for whatever reason, I'm not in the office. Okay, and do you guys have any questions?
Hi, Jessica and Yin. I have a couple really quick ones. This is Sylvia. I wanted to confirm on the notice of exemption form. You had indicated that copies were okay. Do you want a copy of the signed NOE, or do you want the original signatures?
Whichever one you want to send me.
Okay. And then the certificate of compliance transfer fee document, that normally is submitted by the real estate agent prior to it getting to us. Is that correct?
I've seen it. I think it kind of depends on the situation, because I've seen it when the homeowners have done it. I've seen it when the title companies have done it. I've seen it when even the real estate agents. I mean, it's whoever gets it to me. I mean, it's just at that point, whoever can get me that. It might be at a crunch and they just are in a hurry, and so it's been all over the place on that one.
Okay. And then if you anticipate a fee increase July 1st, I know you're usually pretty good about notifying us. I'm guessing you'll put like an appropriate time window in there, that if we've submitted fees to a lender, as you know, under trade, if we make any changes, it becomes very difficult, but you will normally put a decent time frame where you'll accept the existing fee versus your new fee should it change July 1.
Yeah, so our new fees go into effect July 1st. At least last year, so I'm kind of, this is my second year, so I'm kind of taking the reins on this a little bit more than in the past. But it's been 30 days that I sent. So let's say I send it like at the end of May. I'm hoping that they'll let us know soon. So then that gives you all of June to work and update it into your system what the new fees should be. So then, but I know that there's some stuff that happens after July 1st, and I know fees get paperwork somewhere in the mix in there. And so we do give a grace period about 30 days to take older fees, because we made an agreement with our comptrollers not to switch us over like straight off the bat on July 1st, because we know this is what's happening. But once they switch their function off and they take the older fees out, that's where we run into issues, and we're like sending it back like, hey, you need to correct this, because there's no way for us to manipulate those fees in our system. So after July 1st, you should have until the end of July to get the new fees into your system and kind of correct it and everything that has older fees out of there. Because I say once they switch it up on our side, we can't go back. I hope that kind of makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any other questions from anyone? You can type in the chat.
Or I can just unmute everybody and see what happens.
That's up to you. Any other questions?
Well, hearing none,
Yeah, I'd probably go ahead and mute Zach.
hearing none, I everybody for tuning in to listen, to see this presentation, and I hope it was beneficial to you. And if you need anything, if you have any questions later on, please give Jessica a call or send her an email and copy that other email just in case.
Okay, and I want to take a minute, thank both Yan and Jessica for the great presentation. We appreciate you helping us to be educated so we can help our real estate agents along the way, and more than anything for us to get our documentation, the NOEs submitted timely, filled out, and with the correct fees. Thank you all very much for your time this morning. We really appreciate you and appreciate the class. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. And for those of you who call in, if you can let Zach know who you are so that we can have a name for each person who attended this presentation for our record. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.
Have a good day.
Thank you.